they have a very dynamic attack, as you have mentioned. But yeah, speaking of Aston Villa now, do you think the target for the season is going back to the Champions League?
Well, repeating last season's achievements was always going to be a tough ask for them, this season. I think that based on the projects that they have, their aim would have been to return to Europe, possibly the Europa League, because the Champions League would always be, you would always expect the big teams in the Premier League to fight for those Champions League spots, and I'm referring to Manchester United, Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, and Man City. For clubs like Aston Villa, they would have to depend on one or few of those clubs messing up, and then capitalize on whatever slip-ups they might have to make the Champions League. I still do not think that they have the character or the know-how to consistently make it to the Champions League. If you remember how Tottenham started as well, when I think it was Harry Redknapp that was coach at the time, when they made the Champions
Yes.
League, I think they failed the following season, and then they tried again, and then before they sort of got used to it, and then it became a regular thing in a way for them before they now slumped again. So I wouldn't expect that they would they would want to make the Champions League immediately, but it wouldn't have been their main objective. Their main objective would have been to return to Europe, see what they can do this season, and then try again next season. And then hopefully with time, it becomes a regular thing. So I don't think Champions League would have been the target this season.
Okay, Yinka, before you tell us your biggest winner, which club do you consider the biggest loser of this transfer window?
All right, so the biggest loser for me would be teams that failed to address, the needs. Like you said earlier, transfer window in January is meant for addressing certain needs that you were unable to address during the summer transfer window. It could also be an avenue for, plugging some holes due to injuries or for one reason or another, you're missing certain players. So the biggest losers for me would be one, Arsenal. Second would be Inter. Arsenal, because it was so glaring, even to the blind, that they needed an attacker or a striker. There were names thrown around here and there, but for some reason they failed to bring it home. Inter also needs attackers. They needed attackers in the transfer window. What they expected Mehdi Taremi to bring to the table, he has failed to bring that, to the table. And they've solely relied on Lautaro, who was off form for the first part of the season, and Marcus Thuram. So they needed someone else to try to bring in the goals, but for some reason they also failed to address. So it would be Arsenal and Inter for me.
Wow. I didn't need to ask Charles. I'm sure Arsenal is biggest loser. Charles, if Arsenal fans will catch you in a dark alley, they will not take this seriously. So, but then, before I let Charles explain his take on Arsenal, at the tail end of the transfer window, Duran left Aston Villa for Saudi for 77 million. And I remember Saudi were interested in Duran or Boniface. And it just came to my mind that means Boniface had been open to a move all January. And how come Boniface was never an option for Arsenal? I mean, uh, let us be sincere here. Boniface is a fine striker. He is good on the ball. He can bring in the midfield. He can score goals. Let's assume Arsenal were skeptical about Osimhen. Boniface was an option they could have explored, even if it was a loan with an option or obligation to buy.
But if Boniface
That's
wants to, if Boniface is interested in joining us now, he may have been interested in a move, but the move would need to have been worthwhile. But I'll let Cass continue, obviously.
wait, Taz, before you answer. Arsenal is a bigger club than Leverkusen. Are you
Obviously,
telling me Arsenal
yes.
cannot lure
Hold on.
Boniface?
Hold on. Al Nassr is a smaller club compared to Leverkusen, but Boniface still decided to leave. Because why? It was worthwhile for him financially. So would Arsenal have been prepared to motivate him to leave a club where trophies are almost guaranteed? Well, I wouldn't say guaranteed, but he has the higher chances of he
To a
has the higher
reasonable
chance of
extent.
winning
Yeah.
trophies with Bayer Leverkusen than with Arsenal. So you have to make it worthwhile. I don't know what Arsenal's wage structure is at the moment, but Al Nassr were prepared to maybe triple or even quadruple what he currently earns at Bayer Leverkusen. Would Arsenal have been
Sure.
able to offer that?
Taz, over to you.
I don't know why Yinka is not coming out with his full chest to throw the jabs at Arsenal fans. He's
No, I'm
going
not.
through corners.
This is not a job, honestly speaking. My hands
You
are clean.
you can
But
have bias for Arsenal.
honestly
I
speaking,
know.
in fact, I've been accused many times in the past of hating Arsenal. I've been accused many, many times. Tosin accuses me a lot. Dayo accuses me a lot of hating Arsenal. So, but I just try to speak things the way I see it.
Taz,
So, like Yinka have said, I think it's more of because when Ateta was asked, you guys need a striker. He wasn't really coming out straight. He was just going through corners. We need this. Yes, we want this. He wasn't really specific, and I think probably it's his way of not trying to be a Premier League Conte who would come out and tell you the way it is. However, I think at this point, it's very obvious that they need a striker. They know that like I said, and I've always said, and I will say it again, that you need a striker that can put fear in the mind of your opponent once you are coming on the field of play. And Boniface can be that striker. You need a striker that has a little bit of strength, a little bit of the technicality as well, because consider the style of play that Arsenal has. They didn't just need a player that will just stand on the field of play and just expect that, okay, the ball will come at some point. No, they will call you out. It's EPL we are talking about. They'll call you out. They don't care. And even if you are giving them the goals at some point, once they don't like you, they don't like you. You have to do the extra. The X factor has to come into play. So at this point in time, I think what Arsenal needs is a standard striker that will fit into their style. Boniface could have been that kind of striker, yes. Osimhen could have been that kind of striker, yes. Even Victor in Sporting could have been that kind of striker. But like I said, at the end of the day, they ended up not signing any striker. So I just want to believe they know what they're doing. I think it's
they didn't
more
try
of
any
the
attacker, not
model.
even any striker.
And yeah, even Saka's position is not nobody. They didn't bring in anybody to play in Saka's position because they believe they already are, and that's the problem they always have. In the January transfer, some players should turn up and make them feel we are okay, and then after you see what will happen going forward, things will go back to normal. They'll lose a couple of games that they are expected to lose, and then we'll go again with we'll try again next year.
Well, it also has to be said that it's not easy to find players in the January transfer window. As a club, you guys are AC Milan fans, for example. Would you want your best players to be sold mid-season? So,
Did
in
you not
most
lose our
cases,
best player this mid-season?
eh?
Did you
Yes.
not lose our best player this season?
What did you lose?
Alvaro Morata.
This guy. So, well,
We lost our
aside,
captain, our former
you know,
captain. Now, what are you saying?
clubs do not want to lose their best players mid-season. It's only in extraordinary circumstances that you see quality players of actual quality, moving,
Like
possibly
Napoli
because
did with
they're falling out with the club. But I still maintain that this issue should have been addressed in the summer because in most cases during the January market, you just get players that clubs want to get rid of, players that are not happy at their clubs and are just looking to move, players with 6 months left on their contract and are not willing to renew at their club. So I think that is probably what Arsenal or Arteta people, considered and thought, okay, let's just wait until summer. Like I said earlier, this season is over for them. I think I said it in our last episode. This season is over for them. It's just a matter of fighting for pride. So I think they should just, see what they can do in summer. Then.
But then, Yinka, the dynamics of January transfer window is changing and is still changing. And we see clubs using January to sort of trigger a rebuild of their squad. Even though that defeats the purpose of the transfer window, we've seen that with AC Milan this January. We've seen that with Manchester City this January. And I'm just building on what you said. Sometimes January is about opportunistic uh, uh,
Can you hear Samson?
No. I think it's
Looks like it's
frozen,
gone off.
kind of.
But I think the point he was trying to make is that Arsenal should have made use of this transfer market to, rebuild their squad. But the question I'm going to ask is, does Arsenal need a rebuild? They just need, they do not need a rebuild in the actual essence of the word. They just need to add one quality striker, maybe one good left winger, maybe a few backup players. Clubs that Samson mentioned, that's Manchester City and AC Milan, are clubs that actually needed a rebuild. We know what Man City have been through this season. AC Milan has just changed coach. For
can you hear me,
several
guys?
years,
Yeah, we
we
can
can
hear
hear you
you.
now. You went up for a while. AC
Yes.
Milan has just changed coach, but for several years they had coaches that were playing 4-2-3-1 and 4-3-3. Now they've brought in a coach that, even though he can play either of those formations, his main formation, the actual formation that he enjoys playing, is the 4-4-2. So because of that, he needs players that can actually play, in that system. So you could argue that AC Milan also needed a rebuild in the January transfer, but Arsenal didn't need a rebuild. It just needed common sense to say, okay, this is what we should do. But I also understand why they couldn't have done it, because I don't see Sporting. Sporting is not like Feyenoord that might be willing to lose Santiago Jimenez in the January transfer window. I don't think that Sporting would want to lose Victor Gyökeres in January. If the guy is going to move, it would most likely be in the summer. For Osimhen, for example, the deal is too complicated. You first have to release him from Galatasaray, and then you have to negotiate with Napoli. The deal there are too many loops that you have to untangle before you get a deal done.
You get me?
Boniface may have been interested. I'm not sure why they did not consider Boniface, but maybe they were not willing to offer him what he was willing to accept to leave Bayern Leverkusen, because that guy, to be honest, he looks like someone that would really enjoy money. So if you are going to move him away from that club, you have to be ready to pay serious
Good
money.
money.
But that's just my opinion anyway.
Yeah, but to a reasonable extent, I agree with you. However, the reason why we're having this conversation again is because Arsenal didn't do the right thing again. And when the word again comes into play, it means it has happened several times in the
There's a
past,
pattern.
which means they have this. Yeah, so it's a pattern. It's becoming a pattern, and then we are thinking, oh, okay, maybe, just maybe, you don't want to do it in the June transfer window. Okay, do you want to do it now in the January transfer window? So we are only trying to help them think outside the box. No, we know that normally they shouldn't. You don't rebuild, or you don't have bring in too many major additions into your team in the January transfer window. But that was the only problem. In fact, in my opinion, if they signed a striker without signing a
Can
left
you hear me?
winger, I would have still considered them to be a serious-minded team. But as it stands now, I'm beginning to have a bit of doubt.
Can
Ahmed,
you
what do
guys
you
hear
think?
me?
Well, sorry, I'm just coming in. I had some issues with my connection. But if I'm to weigh in my opinion, January window is not one that where teams go into and make major changes in their squad. It takes a lot of desperation to actually go into the window to spend heavily to make significant change in your squad. I think Man City were the only one who did something similar to that. And Ninka
And AC
was
Milan, AC
mentioning
Milan. Don't forget your club, AC Milan.
no. AC Milan didn't really. We brought in a number of guys, but we didn't spend that much. The only
We
significant
brought in
spend was
5 guys,
on
though.
Jimenez, and you must agree with me that that is a department that we found because we brought in 2 strikers and they both couldn't really make any significant impact.